The forest was thick with silence, the kind that presses against your ears and makes your heartbeat sound louder than gunfire. Hidden beneath layers of camouflage netting, mud streaked across her face, Sergeant Elise Carter lay prone in the moss, her rifle pressed firmly into her shoulder. Her eyes were locked on the tree lean ahead where movement whispered between the shadows. 10 hostile fighters, well-armed, experienced, and ruthless, were moving in formation, combing the area for her. They thought they had her pinned, 10 against 1, numbers on their side, but they underestimated the single most important factor in any fight, the patience and precision of a sniper who knew the forest like her own pulse. Elise adjusted the scope, breathing slow and steady, her finger resting lightly on the trigger guard. Every lesson drilled into her during years of training echoed in her mind. 1 shot. 1 life. No mistakes. The enemies believed they were hunting her, but the truth was far deadlier, they had already stepped into her killing ground. She had been dropped into this operation alone, her mission simple but impossible to anyone else: delay the enemy squad long enough for her unit to retreat across the river and regroup. 10 minutes of survival would mean saving dozens of lives. But 10 minutes against 10 hunters in the dense woods? That was suicide. Elise didn't flinch at the odds. She had made peace with death a long time ago, but what she couldn't accept was failure. Failure meant her brothers in arms being cut down before they ever made it home. And so she dug into the earth with her elbows, blended herself into the dirt and ferns, and waited for the moment when the hunt would turn. The first enemy appeared in her scope, crouched low, scanning with a rifle raised. Elise didn't blink. She squeezed, exhaled, and the shot cracked like a whip. The bullet punched through his visor, snapping his head back, and his body fell silently into the undergrowth. She shifted slightly, already sighting the next before the others even realized what had happened. Panic rippled through their formation. "Sniper," one of them yelled, diving for cover. But the forest offered little protection against someone who could see everything. Elisa's second shot rang out, catching another man in the throat as he tried to scramble behind a tree. Blood sprayed, and the sound of choking gurgles filled the air. 8 left. They tried to flank her, splitting into pairs, moving like shadows through the trees. Elise smiled grimly. They thought they were wolves circling their prey, but wolves forget sometimes, the deer can carry fangs. She shifted position, rolling silently into a new firing nest 50 yards away, leaving her old nest to draw their attention. It worked. Grenades exploded where she had just been lying, smoke and fire tearing apart empty earth. One enemy rushed forward to confirm the kill. Elise steadied her scope on his chest and whispered, "Wrong move." The third shot tore through his heart, his body tumbling lifeless into the crater left by his own grenade. 7 remained, their confidence broken. Elise could see their frustration, hear their curses echoing through the woods. Every step they took deeper into the forest was a step into her design. She didn't just fight with bullets, she fought with psychology. She wanted them afraid, desperate, making mistakes. Fear was her true ally, and right now it was crawling into their bones. She crawled forward through the mud, dragging her rifle along, every motion rehearsed in her mind. Memories of her father teaching her to hunt deer came back, the lesson he repeated 1,000 times: the forest talks if you listen. The prey never knows until it's too late. She was no longer his daughter with a rifle. She had become the forest itself. 2 of the enemies set up a heavy machine gun on the ridge, intending to pin her down. Elise knew she had seconds before they unleashed firepower that could chew through trees and flesh alike. She steadied her aim on the gunner, waited until he leaned forward to feed the belt, and fired. The shot tore through his temple, spraying the second man with blood. The survivor screamed and sprayed bullets wildly, chopping branches, shredding bark, trying to hit a ghost. Elise shifted left, took a deep breath, and fired again. His head snapped back, his lifeless hand still clinging to the trigger as his body collapsed beside his fallen comrade. 5 left. Now they knew. Now they understood that this wasn't a fight they could win with brute force. She was dismantling them piece by piece, patience like a razor blade cutting away their courage. Elise felt her chest tighten, not from fear, but from memory. She had been here before, years ago, in another war, another forest. That time she hadn't been fast enough, hadn't been perfect. A mistake had cost her best friend's life. She remembered the scream, the explosion, the silence that followed. That ghost had followed her for 13 years, every mission, every deployment. Tonight she swore that ghost would not be joined by another. Not on her watch. The remaining 5 regrouped, forming a tight circle, their weapons outward, backs pressed together. A smart move, Elise admitted, but it also made them stationary targets. She scanned, waiting for the smallest gap, the tiniest slip in discipline. Then it came, one soldier raised his head just a little too high, eyes darting nervously. Elise's shot cracked, and his helmet shattered, spraying the others with shards of bone. 4 left. They fired blindly into the woods, bullets whistling past her but hitting nothing. Elise pressed her cheek against the rifle and whispered, "You'll have to do better." But just as she lined up her next target, something shifted. A shadow behind her. Elise froze, instincts screaming. One had circled behind, silent, patient as she was. A blade pressed to her neck. "Got you," a voice hissed. Her heart hammered, but Elise didn't panic. In one fluid motion, she twisted her body, driving her elbow backward into his ribs, snapping his hold for just a second. It was enough. She rolled, grabbing the sidearm strapped to her thigh, and fired point-blank into his chest. The enemy collapsed on top of her, blood soaking her uniform. She shoved the body aside and scrambled for her rifle. 3 left. Her breathing was heavier now, her body shaking with adrenaline. The forest no longer felt like a shield but a trap closing in. She knew her time was running short, the rest of her unit had to be across the river by now. All she had to do was survive a little longer. But survival wasn't victory. Victory meant none of these enemies walked away to track her brothers and sisters. So she steadied herself, checked her ammunition, and became death again. She moved deeper into the trees, weaving between ferns and roots, listening to the enemies curse and shout, their voices cracking with fear. Then she saw them, 3 figures huddled together, arguing. One wanted to retreat, another insisted on finishing the job, the third just stared into the shadows like he could feel her watching. Elise didn't hesitate. One shot took the talker mid-sentence, dropping him instantly. Panic erupted. The other 2 ran in different directions, desperation overriding discipline. Elise tracked one, following the blur of his movement through her scope. She anticipated his path, exhaled, and fired. The bullet found his back, pitching him forward into the mud. 1 left. The forest fell silent again, save for the pounding of her own heart. She waited, knowing he would either flee or try one last desperate attack. Minutes crawled by. A twig snapped to her right. Elise swung her rifle, finger tightening on the trigger. Through her scope she saw him, kneeling, weapon trembling in his hands, sweat streaking his face. He wasn't aiming anymore. He was praying. Elise hesitated, her finger hovering. Every instinct screamed to finish it. But something inside her, some last fragment of humanity, whispered no. She lowered her weapon slowly. "Go," she muttered into the silence. The soldier's eyes widened, shocked. He stumbled backward, then turned and fled into the trees. Elise closed her eyes, exhaling a long, trembling breath. The battle was over. She lay back against the earth, staring at the sky breaking open through the canopy. Her mission was complete. Her unit was safe. She had survived. But more than that, she had proven something, to the ghosts, to herself, to the forest that had demanded perfection. 10 enemies against 1 sniper, and every shot had been perfect. Not because she was flawless, but because she refused to give up, refused to let fear win. And as Elise pushed herself to her feet, gathering her rifle and melting back into the woods, she whispered a silent vow, next time, no ghosts would follow her home. That's the story. Closing engagement line. Now tell me, where are you watching this from? Which part of the country are you tuning in from right now?